Hawn is with us today.
Hello.
She is both an attorney and a PhD in political science, and has done a lot of teaching here at the university while she was pursuing her degree. She has won at least 4 teaching awards, 2 at the department level, 1 the Mortarboard Award for Teaching Excellence, if I got that title right, and then the highest award that the graduate school gives out for teaching assistants, Outstanding Graduate Teaching Assistant Award, last spring. And so we're very, very lucky to have her here today to share some of her experiences with us. So if y'all would all join me in welcoming Heather.
Thank you. So yeah, that was a really intimidating introduction, and my TA is actually here sitting on the front row. So I'm actually teaching 3 classes this semester, 60 students each, and I've been assigned 2 GTAs, and WeWho is one of them. So I have extra intimidation. A lot of people from my department are here as well. So yeah, I'm an attorney. I was an attorney for 10 years in North Carolina, and then I pursued my PhD here at the University of South Carolina in political science and just defended my dissertation in February. My first semester here, I was a research assistant, like most of you were your first semester. And then the following semester, I was a teaching assistant for the big Poly 101 class with 2 other GTAs. And then after that, I became an instructor of record, and I've been teaching my own classes ever since. I constructed my own class, Politics and Music, and pitched that to the School of Arts and Sciences to be taught as a Maymester class, and that was picked up this past May. And I've been asked to teach that again this May, coming up, 2012. I'm currently on the job market, but the department has asked me to teach, again, 3 big classes this semester, and next semester I'm teaching the Poly 101 class myself, and presumably I will have 3 GTAs, so it'll be a circle of life kind of thing for me next semester. And I'm also going to be teaching the Poly 101 Honors College class, so I'll have an opportunity to teach in the Honors College. So I have a lot of teaching experience, and really the way I constructed this PowerPoint presentation, my discussion with you today, is really around tips for TAs. So it really is, these are little things that I found that just made my life a lot easier, made my teaching much more effective, ways that I could get better teaching evaluations, build a teaching portfolio, these types of things, okay? So I'm not going to go over sort of the basics that you should know or should have learned from orientation. I'm really just going to give you extras that should make your teaching more effective, okay? So if you're, hopefully will make your teaching more effective, it has helped me. If you have at any point any questions or any concerns or issues, as I say to my students all the time, questions, concerns, issues, that's how I end pretty much every sentence. Please speak up if you have an addendum or you just have some insight, something that you experienced that you want to add to the group, please feel free to do that. I thought I was going to have like maybe 5 or 10 people, so I'm sort of blown away by how many people are in this room, but that's great, okay? So, yeah, let's move on. So TA, I don't even like the phrase teaching assistant. I think you should think of yourselves more as a teaching asset. So what do you bring to the relationship between you and the prof that you've been assigned to? In my particular case, I was an attorney. I had spoken in public a lot, so I wanted to teach my own classes. So I asked the professor that I was assigned to, well, when can I actually do some lectures, and when can I take over some of your teaching responsibilities? And he was completely blown away and shocked, and had never had anybody do that before. So he had me teach several classes, and then more classes, and then more classes, okay? So by the end of the semester, I was teaching actually about half the classes that he had scheduled. And I think, you know, you just have to sort of gauge the relationship that you have with your prof, but everybody has a skill set that they bring to any relationship, all right? Or things that you may know that the professor doesn't know. So for example, I was thrilled to find out that I had these 2 GTAs that had lived in other countries and had all these really interesting experiences. So what can you teach? I don't care what it is, I just want you to teach something in my class, okay? And so that's what you need to be thinking about when you are assigned to a professor. What can I bring to the class? What asset can I bring? Rather than just being an attendance taker or something like that. And there's a lot of ways that you can do that if the professor doesn't want you to actually teach a class, okay? There's other opportunities that you can have, and we're going to talk about that. So the first thing that you need to do is make sure you meet with your professor weeks before the class actually begins, okay? Even if your professor doesn't email you and say, hey, I want to schedule a time for you to come in and talk to me about the class, you need to take that very proactive step and do that so that you can talk about what are your expectations, what are your thoughts about the syllabus, maybe skills or knowledge that you can bring to the class, what your expectations are of the professor. So if you want to develop a teaching portfolio, you want feedback from the professor, you may say, I would really like to teach a class, and I really want you to observe that class, provide me with written feedback because I'm trying to establish a teaching portfolio. Whatever it is that you want, this is a good opportunity for you to talk about that with the professor, okay? So I highly recommend you try to meet with your professor at least a month, if not more, okay? You may also offer to post discussion board posts, okay? So on Blackboard, we have the discussion board where you can have discussion posts. You may say to the professor, hey, I realize you don't want me to teach any classes, which that's cool, but can I be responsible for running the discussion board on Blackboard? You know, half the time your professor is going to say, what's the discussion board on Blackboard? Okay? I mean, he or she is going to have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. So take these types of opportunities to expand the teaching repertoire of your professor. Attend CTE lectures that you think would be of interest to your professor, summarize them, and then give them to your professor. If there are other texts that the professor may not be aware of, he may be using the same textbook every semester over and over and over again. You might be aware of other textbooks out there, okay? Read those and talk about them with your professor, all right? Even if your professor is not somebody who takes an active interest in teaching, and you are taking an active interest in teaching, as evidenced by your presence here, the word will get out in your department, okay? So the professor that I was assigned to, who shall remain unnamed, he's retired now, didn't really take that active of an approach in teaching, but I took a very active approach, and everybody in the department knew it, okay? So after that first semester of being a teaching assistant, they said, well, you know, you just need to teach your own class and just be done with it, all right? And I think that's the way you should try to think about it. Even if you want to be at an R1 institution or you want to do research, all these schools are looking to see what your teaching portfolio is too. I haven't been on a job talk yet where people haven't asked me very explicit questions about my teaching style. Like, how would you market our department to the rest of the university? Why would somebody take your class over another class? You know, really specific questions. Give me 5 syllabi. If you haven't taught 5 different classes, that's going to be a problem for you, right? So be thinking about your teaching repertoire and what you would bring to the class. Yeah, understand your responsibilities and discuss your expectations of your prof in this meeting, okay? Expand your role. Be specific about what skills you bring. Your professor may not know what your history is. So everybody knew when I came into the department I was a lawyer. And that was actually a little bit of a hindrance because people thought that that's what I wanted to talk about. If I wanted to talk about the law, I'd have stayed being a lawyer, all right? I wasn't interested in talking about the law anymore. I wanted to talk about political science. But people wanted me to teach the con law classes and the international law classes and all that kind of junk, and I didn't want to do that, all right? I was really into teaching all different types of things. So make sure you're very explicit about what you want to do and what your expectations of the professor are too, okay? Don't be intimidated is basically what I'm saying. Yes, the other thing that you could do besides discussion posts or offering to teach certain lectures in the class, you can offer to attend university events that are related to your subject matter, and then perhaps suggest to the professor, hey, it would be really cool if a bunch of students attended in political science, the Constitution Day lecture is a really big thing in political science for obvious reasons. So suggest to your professor, hey, if I attend the Constitution Day event, and if a student also attends, can we give them an extra 2 points on the final if they see me and I see them and I mark their attendance? Those types of opportunities get your name out, okay? And pretty soon students are going to be demanding of their professors, oh, you know, why don't you give Heather a class? Why don't you give Murph a class? You know, she's awesome. She shows up at all these events and she talks to us afterwards. You know, be doing stuff like that, and that will increase your interaction with students, get your name out there, and be a more effective asset to the professor in the class. Okay. Suggest attending office hours with your prof. That was something that I did. As I said, I would really like to be there during maybe just one of your office hours a week to see how you interact with students. Okay? And I suggested after a while, why don't I just do the office hours? Because students are asking me all the questions anyway. I might as well just take over that for you. He was really busy that semester. He had a lot of things going on, and he said, yeah, sure, you know. So I became more and more involved in the class. You just have to, you know, figure out how your prof wants to manage his time, what he wants to do, and how you can fit into that role, okay? And again, keep thinking to yourself, what skills do I bring to this situation? In what ways can I be a teaching asset rather than just a teaching assistant? Okay? Okay. So let's say you've been given the opportunity to teach your own class, or let's say that you have been asked to produce a syllabus, or let's just say you're not able to teach at all and you're not able to produce a syllabus for a class for your prof. You should think about preparing syllabi anyway. All right. When I pitched that class to the School of Arts and Sciences, the Politics and Music, that was a syllabus that I wrote from scratch. And so when I pitched it to the College of Arts and Sciences, they wanted a syllabus that was very detailed, had learning outcomes, the texts I would use, how I would break down the grades. I mean, they wanted a very detailed syllabus. And I realized at that time that, you know, I needed to make my own syllabi. So even if I wasn't getting the opportunity to teach Poly 315, or even if I wasn't getting the opportunity to teach Poly 342, or these classes that I really wanted to teach, I was just going to make my own syllabi, okay? And use those when I went out on the market and trying to get a teaching job. Or, you know, let your chair know that you've prepared these syllabi and that you would be interested in teaching these classes should these opportunities arise. I think too often graduate students and new PhDs don't tell their chair what their teaching interests are. They just want their chair to come to them and tell them their need. But sometimes your chair doesn't know what the need is until you tell him what you can do, okay? So, for example, I was a philosophy major as an undergrad at UNC Chapel Hill, and I just happened to have a conversation one day in the hall. My chair was walking by and heard me, and I said, you know, if you ever need anybody to teach IR theory, international relations theory, I'd be really interested in teaching it. Which is ridiculous because we have one of the preeminent scholars in our department that teaches IR theory, Dr. Harvey Starr. I mean, just, you know, it's just would be completely ridiculous for him to think about that. But Dr. Harvey Starr did not want to teach it one semester, and I didn't know that. So I got the opportunity to teach Dr. Starr's IR theory class, okay? But Dr. Sabia would have never, he's our chair, he would have never known that I had that interest level without telling him that. So as soon as he saw that, oh, we don't have anybody to teach 315 because Dr. Starr wants to take a break, here I was, Johnny on it, with my syllabus already done. Here's a syllabus. This is the way I would approach it, okay? So I was able to teach that class, which was really nice because Dr. Starr was still in the department, and I actually had Dr. Starr come in, observe my class, and give me written feedback. I mean, he's sort of the expert on IR theory, so I had this nice written report that I was able to put in my teaching portfolio, okay, which was pretty effective, all right? So when you're getting ready to write your syllabus, I think there's some important things you need to think about. I know everybody likes to say, oh, a syllabus is a contract between you and the students. It's a little bit difficult for me to say being a lawyer, so I'm not going to get into that debate. But you need to be very creative and you need to be very detailed. This is the flow of your class. How do you want your class to flow? So for me, political science, a lot of times can be pretty depressing, especially the classes I teach. Nationalism and ethnicity and world politics, contemporary US national security policies, all right? This is really heavy stuff. So I don't want to just hammer these big, heavy issues, nuclear weapons, terrorism, biological warfare, cyber warfare, every day. I cover a couple of heavy issues, and then I have a day where we talk about media and information and how people can assess security risk, okay? And I play some Jon Stewart videos or some Stephen Colbert videos. I incorporate that when I'm designing my syllabus. How dark is this material, and when do I want to have something light? Okay. I also don't design my syllabus to have every day lecture, 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 lecture. I may do 2 days of lecture and then a day of discussion. What did y'all think about what I said over the past 2 days? Okay. I may design every class to be half lecture, half discussion. Whatever, but this is your opportunity to think about how you want your class to flow. And it's somewhat difficult to do this because you don't have any people actually signed up for your class, so you don't know if it's going to be 30 people or 60 people. That may be difficult. You may not know if they're all freshmen or sophomores or juniors or seniors or whatever, what their histories are. I'm going to tell you a way to get that worked out, though. But you need to be very creative in thinking about how you want your flow to be. You also need to be very detailed in your syllabus. The biggest complaint I have from students, and I actually sent out on Blackboard an email to all of my students, all 180 this semester, please tell me what are the best things and worst things about TAs, because I'm doing this lecture at the Center for Teaching Excellence, and I want to know what you guys think. And their biggest complaint was the syllabi are not detailed enough. I don't know what my expectations are, okay? And I don't know what the professor wants, and I don't know what I need to get an A, okay? That's the most important thing. So tell them exactly what your expectations are. And I'm going to show you one of my syllabi so you can see how actually I did that. But you need to be very detailed and be creative, okay? Don't make it boring, but make it detailed. You need to always have learning outcomes. What do you want them to get from this class? And me, because I'm a teachery person, I like the pedagogy, I want my learning outcomes not just, I want you to learn a lot about American national security. That is definitely one. But the other one that I want is I want you to communicate better. For me, citizenship means active interaction with other citizens. And that's what I want to do. I want to increase citizenship. So I put that as one of my learning outcomes. I want you to be better communicators and engage in political dialogue. Therefore, I put a very high premium on class participation. It's usually 25, 30, 35% of their grade, okay? They also usually have a small paper and a big paper, or at the very least, a big paper. So I put as my learning outcome, communication is not just speaking in dialogue, it's written communication as well. How well can you communicate these theories, these ideas that we're talking about in class in an effective way with the written word? That's a learning outcome. It's not an English class, but I feel like you need to be able to do this to be an effective citizen in a democracy, right? So I put that as a learning outcome. So when you're thinking of learning outcomes, don't just cut and paste something on somebody else's syllabus. Think about what you want students to get out of your class. Expectations. I tell all my students in my syllabus, you do your job and I'll do mine. I will read all of this material, break it all down for you, help you understand it, provide an engaging dialogue, stimulating conversation, okay? But you got to do your job. You've got to read, you've got to come to class prepared. If you don't keep up your end of the bargain, then the whole thing breaks apart, okay? And if I put it that way to students, that we both have jobs in this, and that makes all of our experiences better, they will tend to read more. And if I make that very explicit, if you don't do your job and I'm doing mine, this isn't going to be a good class. And they catch on pretty quickly, because there's always, some students in there who read, and then the class is really cool with those students in me, okay? And so they want to be more engaged. I usually get students that do read a good chunk, and I give pop quizzes every once in a while too, so I know what they're doing. You have to decide this for yourself, whether you're going to put a biography of yourself in your syllabus. I do not, because I prefer to talk about that my first day of class, what my life history is. But if it is relevant to your class, so for example, I teach Latin American politics I'm teaching Latin American politics this semester. My research, my dissertation dealt with Guatemala and Mexico. So I tell students on the first day, I did my field research, I contracted a very lovely case of E. coli, and let me tell you all about it, okay? But you can talk about whatever you want to, but let the students know a little bit about you. okay? I'm a lawyer. I defended employers in federal lawsuits over labor violations, okay? What in the world are you doing here, you know? So I want students to understand that it wasn't that I was a frustrated lawyer, I didn't like the practice of law, I did enjoy it, please come talk to me about it, that type of thing. Students like to hear this. You have to decide whether you want to put that in your syllabus or not. Contact information. Of course, you need to put where your office is, but then in class, tell them how to get there. I know that sounds intuitive. Okay, I'm in 315 Gambrel. Well, students don't realize where Gambrel is because I'm teaching in the Williams-Bryce building. Well, which one's Gambrel, okay? Where's 315? All right, as you get off the elevator, walk towards the bathrooms, make a right, make a left, make a right. There you are. As the crow flies, I'm over there, whatever. But tell students how to actually get to your office. Give them the email address that you actually check, not just the one that they're going to find in sc.edu. And then I'm going to give you a little secret. Give them your mobile number if you have text capability, and I'm going to tell you why. This is the most beautiful thing under the sun. People criticize me for this because they say, well, I don't want students calling me, and I need to have that barrier between my students and myself. It's a lifesaver. Tell them they cannot call you under any circumstances, but they can text you, okay? So if you come to my office and I'm not there, text me and find out where I am, because I always have my iPhone with me. You are no longer chained to your office during office hours. You can get up and go next door and get a cup of coffee, right? You get on the phone with your friends and chat with them, because if a student's outside your door or a student's trying to find you, they can text you, and they will. Hey, Heather, I'm standing right outside your door. Where are you? I'm peeing. I will be right back, okay? You are no longer chained to your office. Trust me, really think about that. It is a huge lifesaver, because then you don't have to go, oh, well, can you come by Tuesday at 2:30? Well, is 2:15 okay? Well, I don't know, forget that. Just let them text you. Trust me on this, it's a lifesaver. Rules of dialogue. This is something that I have to go over in a lot of detail with my students, because we engage in a lot of debates, and they can get mean and aggressive and rude to other students. So I have to have a rules of dialogue based on Socratic method. And I'm very detailed about that, and it's in my syllabus. But I don't like side chatting, I don't like eye rolling, I don't like sighing at what other students are saying. I don't care necessarily what students do when I'm talking, but I want them to treat other students with respect. And I'm very, very strict about that. And I tell them that you will have deductions from your participation if I determine that you're being rude to your fellow students. Okay? That comes up a lot because we have liberals and conservatives, and everybody sees things differently, and it becomes more and more isolating and fractious, and I just don't like it. So I have a rules of dialogue on my syllabus, and I tell them what the consequences are if they violate them in any way, and I'm strict about enforcement. Disability accommodation. I think you need to absolutely have this in all of your syllabi. Okay? I will accommodate students with disabilities. Please see me, and we will talk about that. And I have students come see me for all different types of reasons. They have some sort of learning disability in which they have to listen to the books rather than read them. So they have to have all of the books read into tape so that they can listen to them. So they may not be able to engage in conversation about the subject matter that day because they have to wait till the tapes are created, okay? That's something that I need to know about. One semester had, it was a very contentious class with a lot of debate and a lot of arguments, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna bring in Krispy Kremes next class, and we're all just gonna eat a Krispy Kreme before we start, and it's all gonna be cool, we're gonna be cool. And I thought this was a lovely thing, and it was, students appreciated it, but I had a student that came to me after class and she said, well, I'm not gonna be able to come. I have bulimia, and seeing large amounts of people eating is a trigger. Wow, you know, I need to be thinking about these things when I'm planning my class. That is something that I never would have thought about, okay? So be thinking about these things when you're designing your syllabus and you're thinking about how you want your class to flow. It comes up in a lot of really interesting situations. I also put on my syllabi required readings, of course, But then suggested readings. And I know everybody says, oh yeah, but students never read the suggested readings. Some will, and they'll be really into it. And that's what they'll want to talk about in class, okay? So I highly recommend that you also put just things that you have read over the summer or things that you've read in the past year that are in some way related to your class, but are pretty broad for students that have potentially additional interest, okay? I'm amazed every semester how many suggested readings I list, and then students actually do read them and want to talk about them. It's very impressive. So if you put that on there, you are engaging those students that do want to find additional information, and they will love you for it. Post during the summer, or send an email with introductory materials and your syllabus, okay? So during the summer or during Christmas break or whatever, whenever you get your syllabus done, send an email to all the students that have registered for the class. It may not be all the students that end up in your class, because a lot of people register and drop just before class starts. But send them all of this introductory material, paper assignments, and other documents, your syllabus. Put that all on Blackboard and send all of your students an email saying, all of this information's on Blackboard. Check it out. Buy your books at such and such. They're $27 here, and they're $32 here, and they're $18 here, and they're all under $100. Go ahead and order them from these sites. Okay? I do that too. I find out where they can get their books the cheapest. And if I'm requiring the 4th edition, if the student wants to buy the 3rd edition, here's the problem with that. You don't run into any of those problems your first day of class. Everybody has their books. Nobody's complaining because everybody got them super cheap. Trust me, it saves you a world of hurt to go ahead and get that syllabus done before the first day of class and get it out to them. Along with those introductory materials, what your expectations are for a paper. I have a separate document for paper assignments or for other assignments that I want during the course of the semester. I put that all on Blackboard and send it all out to them in email. And if they don't like the look of it, they can just go ahead and drop it then, right? No judgment, but I want you to know what's going on way before that, okay? So here's a syllabus, and I know you can read every word of that very, very carefully. But I just wanted to show you what some of the pages of my syllabus look like. So I like to put a lot of little pictures on there, all right? So this is my Nationalism and Ethnicity and World Politics class. Here I have the purpose and objectives of the course. I tell them this is a 400 level class, so you're going to have to treat it as such. It's demanding. There's a lot more reading than you may be accustomed to in a 300 or a 200 or a 100 level class. I break down all of the grades, okay? 25% is this, 10% is that, 30% is that. This is what an A is, this is what a B is, this is what a C is. These are my educational goals. Notice it is a huge chunk of the syllabus. Here are my rules of dialogue so that nobody is confused about that. Here are my learning outcomes, contacting me and interacting, okay, what my expectations are with that. Here are my readings, okay. Additionally, I post things on Blackboard. It may come up just before the class, it may come up after, but that is required reading as well, and I'm going to let you know. And then here's the syllabus in detail. Okay, again, more pictures, more cartoons. I try to make it colorful. Here's the rest of it. Okay, a short syllabus for me is 5 or 6 pages. A short syllabus for me is 5 or 6 pages. I've had some go on to 10, okay, because I just want additional information in there. And when I send them an email and tell them what's on my syllabus, I say, you're expected to know everything on the syllabus. And on the first quiz that I give or first test that I give, I always have a question from my syllabus, okay? Just to make sure that they're reading it, paying attention. I don't like to have a lot of questions that are easily answered in the syllabus, and I tell them this, okay? So you've got in your class, or you're working with your prof, and what to do prior to your class, okay? Your pre-class preparation. Here's your lovely classroom, okay? First thing you should do is not just look up what your classroom looks like on the university website. You should actually physically go into your class and walk around. I suggest going with a friend and standing at the front of the room and talking and engaging, using the technology, and having your friends sit in different places in the classroom. so that you can hear how your voice projects and they can give you feedback on that. I highly recommend that you do this. Do not wait till the first day of class to go in and try to figure out how to work the technology in the room, where you're going to stand, how you're going to move, how you're going to use the space. Figure out all that stuff before class starts, okay? Even if it's a room that you have taught in before or have been in before, because stuff at this university changes, okay? Computers that you may have had comfort in using may now be different, okay? So even if it's just, you're just gonna occasionally write things on the eraser board, do that. Make sure you have markers and that your writing is legible. Have your friend walk to the back of the classroom and say, can you read what I just wrote? Can you read my handwriting? Is this pen dark enough? Is it appropriate to use a black and a red pen? Students may be very reticent to actually have these conversations with you during the class, and you'll hear about it on your evaluations, okay? So make sure you're using the technology in the classroom, you're using it in an effective way, and I suggest doing that way before the class ever starts, okay? Make sure you have the key to your classroom, especially if you're teaching an 8 a.m. class, because sometimes housekeeping will lock the doors. If you can't get into your class, what are you gonna do? So if it's an 8 a.m. class, always get the key. Get the key to your classroom, okay? Check out your classroom with a friend, there you go. Send an email introducing yourself and instructing them to investigate Blackboard, okay? Make sure you get that out and then hold them responsible for it. Well, I sent you guys an email. You should have gotten all this information. So there's not a lot of, oh, I ordered the books and they're not in yet. You can avoid a lot of that if you send out an email early enough. And introduce yourself, okay? Tell them a little bit about yourself in the email. Why you're teaching the class, why you're excited about the class. So I'm really excited about teaching national security policy this semester in particular because of all of the exciting changes that are going on. Okay, it's an election year. We should have Republicans and Democrats talking about foreign policy from 2012 on. And I'm really excited to have this dialogue. You know, tell your students why you're teaching the class. Even at, oh, I've taught this class 15 times. Well, okay, but you're still teaching it, so why are you excited about that? Those are types of things that you should put in your summer or your Christmas email, okay? And tell them, hey, check out Blackboard. Open up all the links, look at all the stuff. If you have any questions about the syllabus or any of the materials, please let me know, okay? Again, suggest options for textbook purchase and ask your students if they find the textbooks cheaper to please let you know, so that you could tell the other students about that. Okay, get students involved in cost savings. Another really important thing that I think you should do prior to your class actually starting is setting up a network of teachers. And I don't mean a bunch of graduate students that go out and get coffee and complain about students. I mean people who are serious about teaching. And it may not be people in your department. I took, for credit, EDHE 738 my third year here, which is teaching college students in the Department of Higher Ed. And that was wonderful because all of the people taking that class, all the PhD education students that were taking the class, were actually getting their PhD in education administration, so they wanted to go be high school principals and work in arts and sciences departments at other universities. I was the only person in there that was actually teaching classes, teaching students. So I was sort of like the pet because I wasn't an EDHE person, and I actually had student experiences that I could talk about in class. So it was a really wonderful experience. But the best thing about that for me is I have kept in touch with all of those people, and they're the people that I talk to about teaching. So I've had this horrible day. What are your suggestions for making it better next class? I had this experience with a student. I didn't know quite how to respond. What do you guys think I should do? Okay, and they do the same thing for me. They may have some experience that happened to them now in their jobs because they've all gotten their PhDs and are gone, and I may offer some insight. So there's a dialogue of teaching, a teaching network, and I can't tell you how important that is to me, okay? So think about that. Prior to your class starting, find some people that have an interest in teaching and say, can we all get together maybe once every other week and just chat over coffee? Or whatever, okay? Can I get everybody's email? Let's set up a Facebook page or whatever. But set up a network of teachers, not just people who like to get together and complain, okay? So now you made it to your first day of class, all right? So you're at your first day of class. I'm not a big fan of hitting the ground running. That's something you're gonna have to determine for yourself. But the first day of class for a lot of students, especially freshmen or transfer students, is so crazy and hectic that I choose to just give out my syllabi, introduce myself, talk to them about the class, okay? Do my introductory items, which we'll go over here in a minute. But I don't actually talk about anything substantive on that day. That's your choice, all right? I'm not suggesting that you don't, but it's just sometimes students are just wanting to see what the class is about, whether they even want to stay in it or not. I think if you just hit the ground running and move right into the material, it can be a little bit overwhelming. But that's me. You just have to make that decision, okay? Go over syllabi, answer questions, hand them out a hard copy, okay? Because my syllabi have color pages. I print it out in the 2 pages that I have in color, give it to them. Answer any questions about the syllabi. That's pro forma. I also demonstrate how to use Blackboard, and if I have a website or if there are sites that I want them to use, I will demonstrate that if I'm in a smart room. And I know that you're like, well, why would you do that? All the students know how to use Blackboard. They don't, okay? Every class I have a lot of discussion board posts. I'm a big fan of discussion board. I put a post on discussion board almost after every class. And I have students that are still coming up to me now, 3 weeks into class, and saying, what's this discussion board stuff I keep hearing about, okay? All right, so go through it. Show them, pull up Blackboard, and show them here's the discussion board links, here's how you post, here's how you see what everybody else is saying, here's how you respond. It's not anonymous, all those things, okay? If you have a website, show them how to use your website. Don't assume just because they're 19 years old and they should know how to program a computer to launch to the moon, that doesn't necessarily mean that all of them can, okay? You really do have to make sure that they understand the technology and what you want them to use. If class size is appropriate, have them introduce themselves to each other. If class size is appropriate. Nothing is worse than sitting in a classroom of 50 people where I go around the room and go, so tell me, what's your major? Okay, nobody wants to hear that for 50 people. It doesn't mean anything, they're not gonna remember it. But if you have 20 students or less, absolutely have everybody introduce themselves. And if you have a class that's that small, you may actually want to move, if the department allows, if the building you're in allows, you may want to move the chairs around, okay? So in my music and politics class, because it was a Maymester class, I had 20 students at 8 a.m. Hello, 8 a.m., 20 students. I had all of the chairs moved around in a semicircle, okay? So everybody could see everybody. And it worked out really well. That's the only time I've ever had moved around the physical structure of the room, but you just have to determine whether that's going to be appropriate in your class. This is a little trick that I've learned that I love. I give every student an index card. And on the index card, I have them write their name, their major or their minor, or majors and minors, and other political science, and I put ish, classes. Because in political science, you may have taken 2 or 3 political science classes, but you may have taken a lot of ish classes too. Like international econ, yeah, I want to know that. Anthropology, I want to know about those classes. Oh, I'm fluent in Spanish, French, and Italian, yeah, I want to know that, okay? So political science and political science-ish. What have you taken that I think you can bring to a classroom dynamic? I ask them what their expectations are of the class. What do you want to learn in this class? Okay, what do you want? And then why are they taking the class? And tell them to be very honest. It's not going to hurt your feelings. So I say to my students, if what you want from this class is a good grade and the reason why you're taking it is because you're required, I want to know that. And they sort of go, well, why do you want to know that? Well, because that helps me structure my class. So in my Latin American politics class, half the class is taking it because they have to, which I did not find out until the first day. That's okay. I may not want to go into the economic development of Argentina from 1963 to 1978 in a lot of detail. I may instead want to talk about immigration in the US, okay? That's Latin American politic-y. And it may be more appealing to half the class that's there because they have to be, right? So allow yourself the opportunity to change your classroom structure based on the demographic of your class. I really, really suggest you do that. Even if they have to be there, they really don't want to be bored. So talk about something that is going to be interesting to the student that has to be there, okay? And you'll be amazed, because I've had a lot of had-to-be-heres that they're taking their third class with me, okay? So they had to be there that first one, but they didn't have to be there those other two, all right? I have a lot of recidivists, which I call my students that come and see me over and over and over again. I also ask them a fun question. What's your favorite song? I don't put all of these, but we'll just pick one. For Latin American politics, what's your favorite song? What's your favorite movie? Okay, whatever. Just one silly question that they can put at the bottom of the card. A, they think it's sort of funny. They sometimes try to come up with stuff that they think I won't know because I'm old. And it also provides an interesting opportunity for then office discussions. So when a student makes an appointment or texts me, hey, Dr. Hawn, I want to come talk to you about blah, blah, blah. They come and talk to me and I'm like, you know what? Avatar is one of my favorite movies too. Really? We could talk about that for maybe 2 or 3 minutes. It's just sometimes fun to do that, all right? Have a little personal information. The other thing I like to do with that personal information is then I make a graph of it and then show that in class number 2. So let me show you what your class looks like. There are 50% political science majors, 40% international studies majors, 13 people in here speak a language, not just English, and 13 people said their favorite book is Twilight. Whatever. Okay, it's just a fun way of getting in the class and letting students know who else is in there. And that I am thinking about that, and that type of information is important to me. Seating chart. I absolutely think that you should always make a seating chart and make the students sit there time after time after time after time, okay? Now, some instructors say they don't like this. They want students to have this sort of freedom. I believe in that for the first day, but then after that, you're stuck. And I tell them, make sure you're sitting where you want to sit next class because I'm going to do a seating chart. That's the only way that I can remember their names. And I think it's really important. These people are 18 and 19 years old, some of them, and they're in a huge university with 28,000 other students, and they feel completely lost. And when they can come into your office or when they come to class 5 minutes early and you're there 5 minutes early and I'm like, Lindsay from Baltimore, it's important, okay? And I think the easiest way to do that is to have a seating chart. And you know what? Students then build a camaraderie with the students that sit right around them, especially if you have a lot of classroom discussions. So I highly recommend the seating chart, okay? I know it stifles their freedom, but deal with it, okay? Again, tell them always why you are teaching the class, why you are excited about it, and what you want them to learn. So every day I come in and I say, okay, this is what we went over last week, and this is why, and this is what we're going to do today, and this is what we're going to do the rest of this week. And I think this is important because students really like you to come in and give them a little bit of a map at the beginning of class. Okay? Why I think this particular issue that we're going to talk about is important. Or maybe an experience you had in a previous class. Like students really found this particular lecture interesting but troublesome. I'm going to be interested to hear what y'all have to say about it. Okay? Or students in the past have found this really super confusing. So if you do as well, don't be scared because we're going to break it all down. Whatever. But give them a roadmap and make them understand that you are thinking about the process of learning. Okay? So now you have been teaching your class and you're going to have an office hour. All right? So you need to think about this next environment. You've thought about your classroom environment. You have thought about your syllabus. You are teaching. Everything's going great. A student comes to your office and this is what they see. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Okay? What does this say to a student? I don't have any time for you. I don't want you here. And you're going to smell something horrible and you're going to want to leave in 2 minutes. Don't do that. That's a terrible message to send to students. And I know if you office share or whatever, you may not have a whole lot of choice about this, but then you need to find another space in which to meet with students and have office hours. This irritates everything out of me, okay? Don't do this. Make your office a welcoming place. Have at least 2 chairs besides the chair that you're in, because students 9 times out of 10 want to bring a friend. If they're going to go see a professor, they're a little nervous, they've never seen me before, they want to bring a buddy. So have a place for both of them to sit, okay? Leave your office door cracked, but just a crack. Don't leave your office door wide open. I've had so many students come and tell me so many personal things. Me being a lawyer, they tend to want to talk to me about legal issues, and all kinds of other stuff. I want them to feel comfortable in doing that. I don't want them to feel that, oh, I want this broadcast down the hall, okay? So keep your office a little bit of a private sanctuary for them. And you have to be the best judge of that for yourself. But try to do that, okay? I like to make little posters for my classes. So this is a little poster that I made for my Poly 391 Maymester class. And I like to hang those in my office. I like to put my syllabi outside my office door, and I always have a chair sitting outside my office door. I usually have a lot of students that like to come talk to me, so I'll have one that's waiting. And while they're waiting, they can see all my other syllabi of all the other classes I've taught, and it's amazing how many students will come in with one of those syllabi and go, I want to take this class, when are you teaching it again? Okay? And I like to put stuff like this up on the outside of my door and that type of thing. It's just of interest. Students go, oh, wow, that's cool. That looks like a cool class. Let's talk about that. It gives just them something else to talk about, something else to think about you. Let them know that you are very interested in teaching. It's up to you whether you want to do something like that. Yeah. If you office share an idea that I had, you may want to arrange for you to have your office hours at a time when your office mate is not going to be there, okay? I used to have to office share a lot, and it was always a little bit of a problem because being one of the few women in political science, a lot of times female students would come and talk to me about not anything, scandalous, just issues they were having with their boyfriend or issues they were having with something else. And I had shared my office with another male graduate student, okay? So after a while of having these uncomfortable silences, I started arranging my schedule so that I would have office hours without my cohort there, even though he was a very cool guy and understood all that. Make sure if you do make posters or things like this that you're saving them for your teaching portfolio, okay? So for example, this was an advertising poster that I made for my Maymester class. I got a call from the College of Arts and Sciences and they said, hey, can we use that? And I said, well, sure. One of the secretaries in the College of Arts and Sciences saw it posted up in Gambrel and she really liked it, and called me and said, can we use that? We'd like to use it for the cover of our report to the president. And I said, well, yeah, of course. Yeah, you can absolutely use it. Okay, so you'd be amazed at the type of discussion and the opportunities that you can get because you just put a little bit of creativity into creating a poster telling students about your class. Okay, so teaching your class. We're going to go over this a little quickly because we're running out of time. Teaching your class, okay? Think about your wardrobe. This is something they don't talk about in orientation, but I think they should. If you are a young person, I was 36 when I came to graduate school, and I was also a lawyer, so I had a little bit of gravitas, as they say. But if you're 25 and you want your students to respect you a little bit, dress professionally when you teach. Just an idea, okay? Think about what you're wearing when students also come to your office hours too. Think about that, okay? What message are you sending to your students? Oh, I'm just slouchy and I don't take myself very seriously. Well, they're not going to take your class very seriously, okay? So do think about that. Always show up about 10 minutes early. Always. Always show up about 10 minutes early. And always hang out afterwards. I think that's when 50% of the learning happens, in my mind. I got out of my class yesterday at 5:15. I didn't leave my classroom until 7:30. Okay? because I had students that wanted to talk about our discussion. I know those students now really super well. They know me really super well, and I'm thrilled that they're in my class because they have a lot of really cool things to say that I think now that they'll talk about now that they've had this long discussion with me about things, okay? So always show up early, even if you're just standing there, you know, with your little cup of coffee or whatever, because you'll be amazed at the students that will then, after they feel comfortable with you, start asking you questions. You get a lot of problems resolved that way. So always do that, always, always do that. If students send you emails, email questions, or there's a comment that's made in class that you're still thinking about after class and you think of a better answer, email your students and say, you know, there was a comment made in class today. You know, we were talking about being isolationists or neo-isolationists now with our economic structure, and a student made a comment at the end of class and I just didn't have an opportunity to address it. So let me address that now, and I'm sending it all to you, an email. I really like this comment. Or I really like this discussion board post. I don't know if you guys are all looking at the discussion board, but let me tell you what the student just said. Or this student just sent me an email and said such and such is going on campus, and I'm sending it out to all of you. That earns you so much just affection from your students, you have no idea. Now make sure it's an appropriate comment to send and that the student is comfortable with you sending this information. But I like to do that a lot. I send a lot of emails to my students because I start thinking about things that I said or that they said during the class, and I want to follow up, okay? So I send an email after the class and just say, hey, by the way, great discussion today. I didn't get a chance to talk about Jared's comment, and I think it's really important. So here are my thoughts on that. Does anybody else disagree? Put it up on the discussion board, okay? And I make a discussion board post. Send emails frequently suggesting university programs of interest. Hey, I know we were talking about Turkey, we got really sidetracked about that. There's a Walker Institute speaker that's coming next week from CNN Turkey that I think would be really interesting for you guys that have an interest in that part of the world, okay? It also lets your students know that you are cued into what's going on in the university. If you know when the LSAT, the MCAT, or the GREs are being given, make your load light that day. So for example, almost everybody that majors in political science, they're going to take the LSAT for law school. So I'll ask my students the first or second day, hey, when's the LSAT being given? Oh, it's October 30th. Okay. So October 28th, we're going to have a light day. Don't worry about that day. I'll reassign that reading or whatever. Let them know that you are invested in what's going on in their world. Not just the football and all that kind of junk, but the other things that are of concern to them. Okay? And always reference them back to Blackboard and put up your discussion board posts and all that good stuff. You know, I had a discussion post last year about the LSAT. If you've got some good insight on how to get a better grade in the LSAT, please put that up on the discussion board, okay? That was one of the most frequently hit posts. Always be courteous to the next teacher, all right? So if you have decided that you're gonna hang out after class, hang out in your office if you have a class that's immediately thereafter, okay? Don't hang out and then make that teacher rushed because you're standing there with 7 students. All right, if you know there's a class right after you, say to the 7 students, let's continue this discussion up in my office. All right, or let's go to the classroom next door because I know that's empty. All right, but don't take up time with the next teacher. And erase the board, throw away your junk that you leave up on that desk, your water bottle and your run out markers and all that kind of stuff. Take care of your trash. Again, suggest additional materials. One of the nice things that I find out from doing these long papers is that students will then have a really vested interest in that particular topic. If it's a good paper, I will say to them, hey, you need to expand this. If you can turn this into an undergraduate thesis, I think you really should. This is a really good paper. Or I would be really interested in working with you to expand this if you want to use this as a writing sample for graduate school. Okay? You really need to read these 3 books to give you additional insight on this particular topic, and I think you could turn this into something that might be suitable for student publication. Whatever, okay? but show an interest for students that have really put in that extra effort rather than just an A. Yeah, you know what, if they're a really good student, they're a really good writer, A is not a big deal. They get a lot of those, okay? But take it a step further and tell them about other opportunities that they may have that will get them very interested in academics, okay? And finally, learn about USC, okay? This is a great place, and there are lots of things going on here that I don't think we talk enough about with our students. So some of the things that I think all teaching assistants or all instructors should be aware of. What's University 101? Thank you. What's being taught in University 101? What are your students expected to know coming into your class? If you're like, what's University 101? That's a problem, okay? You should be aware of what your students are required to know in University 101, all right? I would recommend you get the syllabi online. I would also recommend that you call up one of the professors that teaches University 101 and you go talk to them and say, what are the students expected to know so that I know what their prior knowledge should be the first day of class, okay? The Center for Teaching Excellence, okay? It goes without saying. There's so many good programs here, so many opportunities for you to learn new pedagogical opportunities and new issues. The Academic Center for Excellence. They are the writing workshop. They have math tutoring, and they are excellent, okay? They also do advising for students who maybe are not getting good advising from their advisor, okay? So if a student comes to you and says, I have a question about advisement, send them to ACE, okay? Judy Bloom, that crowd over there, they're just awesome. They're awesome. University Technology Services, they have all kinds of interesting things for you to use that help make your teaching better. They can do a Blackboard demonstration for you personally. They can show you how to use those really cool clickers that all the students love. They could show you interesting ways of using their mobile phones, internet, all kinds of cool things. So look them up and seek out them if you're looking for something new to add to your classroom dynamic. Understand what the library services do, all right? ILL and Pascal. Direct your students to the reference desk. Those people up there on that first floor love to help students with research. So I tell my students all the time, if you're having trouble finding resources, go talk to the lovely people at the reference desk. If you're having students that are really having a tough time do it, walk over there with them, okay? Understand student health services, including mental health services. So if you do have students, and I have had this almost every semester, have some sort of mental health issue, you know what to do. You know where to direct them, okay? So familiarize yourself with those services. International student services, if you have a student that's struggling with language issues, if you just feel like they're having a tough time fitting in, understand what International Student Services provides. The Child Care Center. I had a student last year that kept bringing their 13-year-old to class. You're going to have to determine whether that's going to be appropriate for you or not. For me, it was fine as long as he was quiet, okay? And he was. He played his little video games. It was cool. But I have had people that have tried to bring in younger children. So understand what child care services there are on campus. Trust me, it will make you beloved with that student that didn't know that those services were available. Learn about study abroad. All right, go to one of the study abroad fairs. I mean, they're just wealths of information, and you can say to your students, you know, so many students have an interest in Latin American politics, you guys really should understand what's going on with study abroad, okay? The Walker Institute of International and Area Studies, we pay people, other faculty and researchers and people from these institutes in Washington, D.C. to come and give lectures to us, but we own them for longer than their talk. So if you see somebody that's really cool on the Walker Institute webpage and you want them to come speak at your class, you could call them up and say, do they have any availability 3 hours before that they could come talk to my class? You look like a rock star because you brought in somebody from the Brookings Institute to talk to your class, okay? Understand those resources that are there. And the USC event calendar. Know what's going on with students, what's going on, what their games are, and what their events are. Understand all that kind of stuff. I know it seems ridiculous and that's not our job, but anything you can do to make your students know that you understand and appreciate their life and what's going on with them will endear you to them. Okay? And I also recommend taking that EDHE 738. I took it with Dr. Mike Welsh. He's no longer teaching it, but I highly recommend if you have an opportunity to take that class, even if you just audit a couple of them, please do take that. Okay, so this is my email address and my phone number. Thank you so very much. Do I have any questions or concerns or issues?
I got you.
Yeah, okay. It's hawnh@email.sc.edu. Any other questions, concerns, issues, preguntas? Yes, ma'am.
I have a suggestion and a question. There's, for those of you who have iPhones and iPod touches, there's an app called Attendance. And on Attendance, you can take pictures in the app, and then you can remember students' names through that too. So if you don't want to do assignments, you can go another way.
I've heard about that. I haven't been brave enough to use it yet. That's excellent. Thank you. Yeah, I have had other faculty members take pictures of all their students and then have like a mugshot wall in their office. I don't know about that, all right? I don't know how I would feel as a student walking into somebody's office and seeing a row of mugshots. And I don't know that that really helps. You know what I mean? It does you? It helps you? Okay. Do what you have to do, because I think that's an important thing to make that personal connection. Sir?
I noticed when you were talking about the syllabus, you didn't include anything about the academic integrity.
Right. You mean like plagiarism and all that kind of stuff? Those are things that I go over in my individual assignment worksheets. So if they have a paper or there's a take-home exam or something like that, I have huge sections on there about academic integrity. And of course, even in my attendance, I have, so I make an attendance roll that has to be passed around. There's a comment on there about academic integrity.
You don't actually then put that in your syllabus?
No, because that's on the paper assignments. So I try, I figure my syllabi are already long enough, and so I figure out where I can parse that information out, but that's a very good point. Yeah, that's important. It's very important, and they need to understand what plagiarism is. And when we go over paper assignments and stuff, I am very, very detailed about that, exactly what that is, because they're very confused. Very good point. Anyone else? Was this helpful? Yeah? Okay. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you. You're a wonderful audience.